Hello everyone, welcome to another aga-cad webinar. Today's topic is long-term solution to design, document and manufacture timber buildings in Revit. We're going to take a holistic approach to this topic and see how this is possible by the help of aga-cad software. So I would like to take a moment and quickly introduce myself. My name is Pavlos. I'm 31 years old. I'm a BIM application engineer here in aga-cad. I'm a graduate of architecture at the University of Strathclyde in Glasgow. I'm also a certified Autodesk Revit professional. Before I joined aga-cad 3 years ago, I worked in London for an architectural practice and I built experience working on several construction sites. Today I'm responsible for the software implementation, development and technical support with all size of businesses. Having this sort of practical construction background in combination with BIM and software knowledge does help me to tailor the right design and modeling solution for our customers. I'm also your contact for wood and metal framing software as well as CNC exporters. So over the time I have been involved with quite a few projects. As you can see, there's a couple of screenshots in this slide. So it's quite exciting to see what our clients are coming up with. The client base really spans from a single person company to large companies, where, you know, quite large projects are being sort of designed and then built. So our ethos is sort of building BIM together, and we've been doing that for quite a while. So we try to eliminate sort of the stress involved in modeling, in other activities that has to do with Revit, and, you know, the things you do in Revit. So some of the first add-ons were developed back in 2008, and to see where they are now, I can definitely see the wide extent that they went from where they were in 2008 to where they are now, and a lot has changed in a good way, in a positive direction, to do with user interface and user experience especially. We are Autodesk AEC industry partner as well, and we now since a few years back now belong to a group of companies belong to Archons. So that puts us on the map quite significantly. Okay, so some of the client testimonial you can access on the aga-cad.com webpage. You can read those through, but yeah, to the right hand side there are some of the company names I've been involved with, and especially dealing with timber framing. So there are these companies listed over here. So aga-cad has quite wide range of software to offer, everything from metal framing to timber framing to precast concrete, sort of MEP coordination and sort of MP hangers, things like that, smart documentation as well. So today we're going to concentrate on this area specifically, timber framing and CNC exporters. So the all-round holistic modeling to manufacturing approach is quite important, and it's quite important piece of our offer to you is to be able to realize where you're exactly in this sort of timeline, I guess, and how it is important to your daily work and generally, you know, as a company, how you're going to move forward. So we do not just have to offer individual solutions or single products. Actually, as a whole, they work really well. And if you look at, you know, different phases of the project, all the way to the very end, where you do the soft landing, submit the building, and you basically have the built asset at the very end. Looking back at this sort of timeline, we begin with very simple things. Those things have to be kind of established. So you may, you know, define your scope of work throughout the project. That's probably definitely something you do. You know, you define it strategically and you have a plan of work. You know exactly what you will be doing and how you will be doing that going forward. So there are some critical areas over here, but what aga-cad has to offer is really solutions pretty much in every step of the way. And regardless of the construction methodology your company is working with, so this could be traditional framing or stick framing, could be prefabricated framing components or modules. This could be heavy timber, post and beam, or oak framing, SIPs or CLT, so construction methodologies or technologies. So regardless of that, we support all of these methodologies. However, the timeline and the approach still stays the same, and that's why we're kind of trying to approach this as a holistic entity that we go through with every project, really. Okay, so I would guess the first and very important step is to establish a common data environment and have templates and standards prepared. Obviously, looking at Autodesk Revit, that's our platform, right? So at this point, before you really begin design and coordination and other things with the project, you want to establish a common data environment, and this could be a local access network, a wide access network, or some sort of cloud server where your data exists or your data lives. Ideally, throughout the entire company, you want to have a same or common data environment where everyone has access to that same data, and where your really project lives. You can combine that with Autodesk work sharing methods. Yes, working with central files. Also, Construction Cloud. That's something that's been going on for a while, but there's a move to sort of cloud-based solutions. But also, the Construction Cloud doesn't just offer cloud server. It has a workflow, it has functionality, and has methods working in there. So that's one thing. You want to place all your further sort of phases of the project, like design, coordination, document and sharing, manufacturing, logistics, in the same common data environment. The next important bit is having templates, things like templates, project standards, family libraries, configurations already in place. Also, file and folder organization, something that sounds quite simple. However, ideally you should have that resolved and know your organization of files and folders in a company. That's just sort of general maintenance. So I've just named a few things. So you may want to have configurations prepared and built for your wall, roof, and floor types, whether you're using prefabricated or traditional framing. Still, you definitely want to have configurations. You may want to have your, Revit family libraries in place, and project standards, things like, view templates, schedule templates, things like splash screens and your title blocks, annotation, that is consistent throughout your projects. You want to contain that somewhere and keep it somewhere, so you wouldn't need to start from scratch every time in a new project. So this picture over here is just showing a wood framing template project, which would really serve you as a starting point. And in the template, you can keep all those kind of things. You can sort of consider this as a family library on its own and just load all the families that you need throughout the project and other project standards. So you can start every every project from template that is really resolved. An image over here just shows you, different sort of stud and plate sizes, let's say, and the laid out somewhere in a 3D view, and each user will know exactly what they're looking for, what's the naming convention of the elements and the families, but also, how your configurations work. So all of our aga-cad software is configurations based, and once you build a set of configurations, you keep that until you change it the next time if you have to. You can modify that. But the idea is that to build a database of configurations. So let's say you have 30 different wall types, internal, external walls in your projects. So you want to build those 30 different configurations and keep reusing them. So to be able to build the configurations, you have to have a Revit model open and, work out the configurations, how things are going to be put together. And obviously this area here, again, just highlighting, the BIM 360, now known as, Autodesk Construction Cloud, just the ability to share the data, regardless really of the location. So that's also an important factor. So way over here, and the entire process is just starting. So one thing you should have is Revit model, right? So hopefully the prior step we just looked at would help you to efficiently build a Revit model. Now we're at the phase of design and coordination. It all begins with Revit model, like I said. So some things like levels, grids, work sets, build-ups of your wall, floor, roof components, and modeling itself, which is, sometimes can be tedious, sometimes it may take quite a while. So aga-cad has a couple of solutions in this department as well, in just plain Revit modeling, things like smart walls, roof panel layout, or even sort mark, right? If you want to number your elements, if you want to have your elements with, numbering and data correct from the very beginning, you may use sort mark and, generate those values for the elements. So that's just, plain Revit modeling. Then we move on to framing and configuring. So literally framing, you have to have a model to frame, but then once you do, you begin the framing operations and configuring, or actually if you have the configurations built already, you just, pick the right configurations and keep framing. You may want to, add some touches or just, analyze and check, each project. It does vary in some sense. So just all your wall to floor interfaces and things like that, those sort of crucial details, you may want to, either update your configurations or provide additional changes to some sort of bespoke area or some really customized, area. So you can do that. Then you would move to interdisciplinary coordination. So whatever Revit allows you in whatever way Revit allows you to share the information, IFC files, NWC files, things like that. So aga-cad is not introducing any alien functionality. We work completely together with Revit. And interdisciplinary coordination, so things like openings could be done with aga-cad cut opening, right? It automatically places openings in areas where you have clashes, right? So you do the clash detection and then you use cut opening to insert openings. So things like that could be really helpful. So whether this is done, after you say done the framing and configuring, or whether this is done before that, that's really up to you how you set up your processes, but it's there, and it's something you most likely will have to go through, coordinating with other disciplines. Right. So framing and configuring, by the way, we have solutions for that. So the images you see here is, framed with aga-cad software. And the very last step, I guess, would be just, the completion of the entire, design, and how it's supposed to be to the very little detail. So adding additional, framing, sheeting, paneling, insulation, adding finishes, connections, that's also available, and just, overlooking the entire design. Aspects of coordination may still be present in this area, but regardless of that, again, aga-cad has things to offer. So something like smart connections would allow you to insert connection details to your elements. And there are other things that are built into Wall Plus, Roof Plus, Floor Plus that will help you accomplish this very step. So the next phase would, be documenting and sharing the information. So let's say the design coordination is complete. Now you just want to share the documents. So how I named it is, classification or classifying elements, auto-filling parameters, QR or barcoding, auto-generating drawings, and the data exchange. For the data exchange, I meant, by saying data exchange, I meant sharing the data to any third-party applications or software for quantities, things like that. So you can take that data and export as Excel, for example. What we also have to offer is BIMAXON, a software we have launched recently and been working on for quite a while. That's available on our webpage. You can read, get more information about that. Essentially what it is a separate aga-cad platform in which you would submit the data from Revit model and classify that data, right? Once you've done the classification, you can bring back the data to Revit model. So whichever the classification system, I guess, you're using, that a lot of the times, actually all of the time, depends on your area, or more specifically the country you're from, and what's the classification requirement. What is the classification requirement coming from the country? What's the system? There are a few systems. That's something we, have to offer, as well as, auto-filling the parameters. So that's something built into pretty much all of our software. Numbering and applying numbering conventions. So how you choose to name your studs, that's up to you. But once you know how you want to name things, you can do that with either built-in numbering functionality, or you can use sort mark. That would really, allow you full access of, filling parameter values that you're gonna come up with. So just kind of introducing the naming conventions and standards is quite straightforward. QR coding, that's also something we have developed now, and that's available. That's part of sort mark and smart documentation. So you can QR code one stud or entire panel, and then put that code on the stud, or actually I think you could imprint that when you export a CNC file, but also you can just put it on the sheet, or maybe have just QR codes, a legend of QR codes, and then each QR code represents something else. Auto-generate drawings, right? That's also part of built-in functionality. Say with Wall Plus, you can auto-generate drawings. So documenting, we definitely have something to offer there. Also moving to Autodesk Construction Cloud, you can move entire projects to the Construction Cloud and use the functionality that's provided in there. Of course, keeping in mind, the Autodesk Construction Cloud, so manuals and, what are the typical workflows, and how do you approach the Construction Cloud usefully, I guess, how it would be useful and really a tool. And the next step would be manufacturing. I guess logistics would be part of that step. So the very last step after documentation is done, you move on to logistics, let's say, or manufacturing straight away. But Panel Packer is a solution for logistics. So you can pack either individual structural members or entire wall, roof, or floor panels. And this more likely this would be used with someone who are dealing with prefabricated construction. So whether you want to work out your logistics within the facility, within your yard, or wherever, storage yard or warehouse, or you want to work out the logistics when you load things on trucks for delivery, or perhaps you want to work out the logistics once things get on site and where things will be placed and in what order. So things like that. The gravity points are also inserted at the very last stage when you create assemblies. So by this time, we really know everything about each individual member, whether it's a framing element or a connection element. We also know everything about a wall panel, let's say, its weight, its height, and so on. And then we can, put or create bundles or packs or stacks, whichever we choose to see them, put prefabricated panels together. You can also join assemblies together. So if you're working with with prefabricated units. As you know, when unit moves onto site, you may also join the assemblies together and then pack the units in some order using panel packer. Another example of that. Okay, and manufacturing. Once you get to the very last step, at that point you can begin exporting the data from Revit based on what you have created. You can export that into various CNC formats that we currently have to offer. Okay, so we'll look into that just a moment. And yeah, depends, how you choose, first of all, what's your production line? Are you working with just one saw, or you have 5 different saws that make up the entire production line? Okay, and like I mentioned, whether you're working with individual pieces or, prefabricated units, right, that will be brought on site as one piece unit and, put together, whether units making up a building, a portion of it, or is it a single piece? So I guess there are a few advantages I would like to name. So we're looking at all-round holistic modeling to manufacturing approach from the very beginning to the very end, and pretty much bringing things onto the site. Okay, so it would help you in sort of energy efficiency and sustainability of the buildings department, I guess, if you could call that. Error-proof and optimized production line. So it will help you to reduce the amount of error and optimize the production line, especially if you take this sort of this overall approach, like I say, all-round approach and sort of holistic. It can minimize resources when it comes to logistics, for example, and waste. So panel packer, things like panel packer is saving space. So that is a predominant algorithm that is designed to save space when it's packing and kind of optimize for saving space. So it's rather going to put one panel above the other based on the algorithm to save the space, right? And it's a unified approach throughout disciplines and departments involved. So you have a common data environment, you have a common platform, you have common standards. That's important to build a strong, I guess, a strong workflows and a good sort of process from start to finish. So that's sustainability aspect also. We've released a white paper on that, and that can be accessed at our webpage. Okay, so I'm going to show you the new sample project we have updated, and I'm going to look at some of the approaches, traditional versus prefabricated, and other things if we have enough time. I also want to talk about the CNC exporters. Okay, so that's a new sample project we've been working on, and it's free for everyone. You can access, you can use parts of it, you can use all of it. That's up to you. So it's not just highlighting, I guess it's not just giving you Revit elements just out of the box. Really, it's taking you through steps necessary to understand software. So it's sort of works on both ends. It's instructional, but also gives you live examples of elements, right? So we have workflow theory over here, modeling recommendations, framing itself, right? So openings, framing in groups, 3D views and 2D views. So you can inspect that at your own time. For example, things like wall connections, right? So we have different wall connections laid out and how they work and how to recognize what is V, what is out corner but connecting wall or long wall, or free start, free end, for example. It's not as straightforward to understand, but once you do, it's quite easy to pick those out. So sheeting, paneling, and insulation, examples of that. Here as well, so there's no issue generating insulation between framing members. Paneling, right? Examples of that. Cladding or siding examples here as well, right? So I guess the more interesting area is where you have frame demo project, and you can also access, and you have filters in here with view template, and you can look at the filters, and switch things on or off, right? So if I go and switch a few things off, right? So that's all based on filters. And right, we have further advancement. That's prefabricated logistics. That's a few examples about the panel packer, right? Panel packer has its own webpage where you can see some videos how to use it. If you ever have questions, I would encourage you to ask us. And prefabricated manufacturing. So a couple of wall panels that are here that we could export. And we have some, drawing examples that were done using Wall Plus, right? This is a Wall Plus sample project. And yeah, so you can investigate that and use that. So if I actually go to just the default 3D view, I have a couple of walls here. So now I'm going to show you an example regarding the CNC exporter. And yeah, so you can find the CNC exporters in its own dedicated tab. It says CNC. So currently we have, I think, about 11 different exporters. So aga-cad wood framing CNC exporters must be used together with aga-cad wood framing BIM software, which creates framing elements with all needed geometry and identity data inside the project. So then the respective CNC exporter would convert the frame models into a format readable by the required CNC machine. So you tell us what machine you have, and we may ask you a couple more details about that, and then we can tell you what exporters we have. And most of the times we have, because to this day we have resolved or developed the most popular formats, right? And not just that, but the more popular ones are definitely in our portfolio. So aga-cad has various CNC exporters available. It depends to the end user requirement, like I mentioned. So once a client knows the machine and the format they will be using, we can provide exporter based on that information. Generally speaking, there are two kinds of exporters. One kind of exporters work only for standalone machines, and the other kind works for machines that are integral part of the production facility or production line. So the production line may consist of 5 or 3 separate machines. However, the format is common, is the same, considering it's the same manufacturer of the machine, right? Exporters are also based on the complexity that the machine and the file format can handle. There are more simple formats and more complex, consisting of more complex cuts. There are also exporters which are capable of handling multi-layered panels, and there are ones that only handle the main framing layer, for example. So CNC exporters also vary between the ones that can handle the sheeting and paneling and installation, and the ones that cannot, right? So that just depends. There are semi-automatic production lines where some operations are left to the machinery and its operator. There are also production lines of high automation where minimum amount of human involvement is required. However, operators and similar support staff is still necessary as per production line specification. So most of CNC machine manufacturers would provide Windows-based viewers as well, where the end user can inspect the frame, provide waste optimization, for example, and perform some changes. So, right? So let me give you a couple of examples of the heavy timber or post and beam framing, right? So we have a couple of beams here, and I have BVX files already exported of those elements, and we can preview them over here, right? So quite complex cuts in the heavy timber column, and you can see there are different commands. So the end user really don't need to worry about things going well too much, because they will. So the exporters, what they are doing, right, and a few other examples over here. So what they are doing, they are taking Revit element in whichever way it's modeled and cut in Revit, and it just simply looking at that information and then translating that into readable format. So, and you know, the exporter is programmed in a way so that it translates each individual cut and operation. So then, you have that. You have all those necessary operations to, cut this piece, right? So that's pretty much done automatically. You just need to worry about the modeling, I guess. That's the key area. So as long as, the beam or the column is what you want and what you need, then you'll be fine exporting that. And yes, so few other examples here. So a lot of our cuts, are treated as connections, and a lot of the times we use smart connections inside those kind of cuts. Not always. There are other ways to do those, but yeah, so things like that, right? Just a few examples. It's quite an interesting one. And yeah, looking from the BVX point of view, these are your objects that you would submit to, these are the files really that you would submit to the machine. Obviously you can inspect. So what I was saying about the viewers, as you can see over here, we have WUP viewer, we have a CDT, I think it's CDT RANDEK viewer, we have this one over here, SPIDA, most likely, yeah. And we have HUNDEGGER, BVX, BTL, EASYFRAME, and yeah, so there are viewers which allow you just to inspect and really, you can perform some changes, but yeah, so the CNC machine operator would definitely, know exactly what to do with the viewers and with the files. So so there are the viewers, right? Okay, and back to the CNC exporters. So they are listed here, right? So we have something called WEINMANN WUP exporter. Yeah, you can access the configurations and, configure how you want to export. So this exporter generates files for WEINMANN production lines that read WUP extension files, obviously. So walls, floors, roofs, and separate framing elements for that fact can be exported using this application. If there is a beam processing machine included in your production line, then the WUP file can be used for simple processing like cutting lumber for studs, beams, and, just general timber framing. So we have WEINMANN BTLx as well. So that's BTL, and do I have BTLx? May not have that. Oh, right, we do. Okay, so this exporter generates files for WEINMANN machines that read the representative file extension. Obviously, the BTL file extensions are widely used around the world and in other machines too. So not just WEINMANN machines, BTL files can be read in some other machines. So our existing installation can be easily adapted. So walls, floors, and roof framing members, trusses, and separate framing elements can be exported using this application. So usually BTL and BTLx format processing goes for highly detailed and complex beams. BTLx is a newer format whose use is not yet as widespread. Right, so that's BTLx. It's not as widespread, right? And the BTL CLT, is it? What is it, BTL? Right, so the BTL CLT, right, so we have WEINMANN WUP and BTL, we have BTLx. We have BTL CLT also, and this exporter will generate files for WEINMANN CNC machines that read this file format, and this is designed for CLT or cross-laminated timber panels. So CLT models that have been framed using aga-cad software, can be exported into this. So then we have RANDEK CDT exporter, which is over here. So the application allows you to export the mainframe only, however, and external layers and internal layers. Without siding, there are a couple options, and those can be seen in the configurations. So the export setup is where you would know exactly, what you can and cannot export. Right? All the options are here. So advanced settings include interior, exterior sheeting nailings, stamping, sheeting trimmings, siding trimming, and siding nailing settings. And these settings are over here. Okay. So there are other exporters. Obviously, the HUNDEGGER BVX generates files for automated HUNDEGGER CNC machines. So you can export framing members for walls, roof elements, and floor elements as well. HUNDEGGER BVX2 for paneling. Again, it works for CLT panels and sheeting that can be exported using this application. Though the CLT panels must be created using aga-cad. Again, it has to be created using aga-cad CLT software solutions. So there are other exporters also available. What I would really like to do is just take a moment and export one of the walls into WUP file. Okay, and then we'll open up the WUP file viewer, and we can preview the exported wall. And I think I'm exporting all the layers, not just the main frame. Okay, while it's doing that, if you would like to know a bit more about WEINMANN, for example, just to get the grips with it, and what they have to offer. There are other manufacturers, of course, so I'm not advertising. I'm just showing a good example of the machines they have to offer, right? So some of the production lines that consist of multiple machines are really advanced. So in this web page, for example, you can find quite decent amount of videos and sort of learning material, or just to know what it's all about. Okay, so my file is produced. If I go to desktop and I can open up this file. Okay, and that's the wall with the nailing, sheeting, and whatever else it has, right? I can explode that and inspect. So each element is described by, numbers, and, commands consisting of numbers and letters. So, that's the information that the CNC machine will take in, and, each element is described in a way, and all those descriptions of elements are put together in the file structure. You can also just inspect that as a text file, and you can know descriptions of each element just by looking at this, right? Okay, so I'm gonna try and show you also some of the CLT, perhaps a CLT example would be nice to see. And while it's loading, again, I could let you know about the aga-cad webpage, and like I mentioned, all the products are listed here. We offer free trial of products, so you can try the 2-week trial. You will have to download the Tools for BIM doc, install Workstation, and when you open Revit, you will see the Tools for BIM doc, from which you then will download and install the software, right? So begin the trial of, let's say, Wood Framing Suite, or SIPS, or CLT, or Oak Framing. You can do that by downloading and installing Tools for BIM doc. We also have our YouTube channel, in which we've recently, actually maybe about a year ago, but we keep updating the Getting Started playlist, right? Which is over here. If you go playlist, you have wood framing tutorials, and these are our 10 tutorial series of getting started and getting to know the wall plus in this case. So in the future, we're planning to do the same thing for floor plus and roof plus. But for wall plus, you can already see, how things put together, how to approach the software and how things work. So, this is really for the beginners. I definitely recommend this. And besides of that, we also have a large, library of, webinar recordings and other bits over here. So you can learn about the software quite a lot just by watching some of these videos. Okay, and this is CLT project, right? So we have solutions for that, and we can put in obviously the fixing or the connection details. The panels themselves can be generated automatically based on the configurations you provide, and things like conduits can be put in place as well. Okay, so that's pretty much it for today, and looking at the kind of holistic approach from the first steps to the exporting to CNC. I don't see any questions at the moment, so I'm probably not gonna take any questions. There are none. However, if you have any questions, you can let us know. So I would encourage you to go to our webpage and discover wood framing software. And if you have questions about CNC, feel free to ask. So you can activate the trial, discover the software. You can contact us if you have any questions, technical or general, related to the software. That's our info@aga-cad.com. That's our email. And also you can, like I mentioned, visit aga-cad webpage. Okay, so thanks for joining this webinar, and I hope to see you soon in next webinars. Thanks very much. Have a good day.
aga-cad, building BIM together.